My farm needs the earth, the air, and the water. I get my energy going on LMNT Electrolyte Drink Mix. Clean, good tasting energy that feeds me like I feed my plants and animals. And after a long day on the tractor, when it's time to shoot the podcast, I drink LMNT so that I can stay energized and stay salty. Let's get it on. Well, now we are lucky enough to have with us the CEO and founder of the PFL. We have Mr. Donn Davis, who is going to talk to us about the PFL, Bellator, everything that is going on. It's amazing to have someone of your stature taking the time out to come on our podcast. We truly appreciate it.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. My stature.
Your stature.
Your stature. I'm glad to be here.
Donn, I got a question. You started out in AOL. I know you didn't start out there. You were a lawyer before that and everything, but you really found your footing with AOL.
Yep.
And you were a big part of that. What was the years that you were doing that AOL?
Yeah, so I was at AOL, kind of during the formative rise of the consumer internet, 1997 to 2002. So I was there for those 5 years. When I got to AOL, the company was worth $4 billion. And in 5 years later, $100 billion.
Man,
and then 3 years after that, back to 20.
That's true. Well, the funny part of this, and I tell everyone, look, the sport of MMA, it survived based upon the internet, and the internet at that time, it was AOL. And, getting online, and you had the all those sounds and everything, but there was an MMA forum called Mon that was part of AOL. There was a couple of different internet website, shows for MMA, but it was AOL was a huge part of the sport of MMA being able to survive. So you were part of that. I want to thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Well, you know what's so cool? I was only 35 when I went there as kind of their first head of strategy. And then I was only 36 when I became kind of the head of their internet group. Think of that. They didn't have an internet at AOL, even dating myself. So what you really learned early is how to think different, and also about the rise and the fall of companies. Nothing is set in stone. Nobody's a winner forever. And so how do you think about the consumer? How do you disrupt new industries? How do you think of innovative new business model and plays? And how are you never out of it? So when everybody says there'll never be another winner in MMA, Everybody says you can never, ever do this, Everybody says things are set in stone, no way. So I've just lived through too many business chapters. Like Shakespeare, there's the rise, but there's also the fall. There is the good, there's also the bad. There's the winners, there's also the losers. And what you want to try to do through all that is be a student. I never want to be right. I want to win. And so I always try to learn along the last 30 years of business what works, what doesn't, how to maximize what does work, how to minimize what doesn't.
So what did you get from those other businesses that you've been able to carry over from this? This is a completely different business model than anything you've done before in the past.
Yeah, not really. MMA is different, but the business model is the same. I spent 30 years building really disruptive digital media, sports, and gaming companies. Those are the same business model as MMA.
I should re-say that. Sorry to interrupt, but I should re-say that. Basically, the business models are probably very, very similar. But in terms of being able to handle fighters, deal with the promotions, be able to be out there in terms of booking venues and top level around the world too, not just here in the United States or North America.
Yeah, it's interesting. Great question. But if you look at what's super important, it's how do you build a company? And nobody in MMA has been able to build a company other than the UFC. Building a company is hard. Having an idea is easy. Building a company is hard. And there are a lot of skills to building a company. And most people who have tried to build something in MMA, all they know is MMA. They don't know the skills of building a global industrial strength company. That's my expertise. So my expertise is how do you put together great teams? How do you think big? How do you execute globally? How do you raise industrial strength capital? How do you deliver for partners? How do you build massive revenue streams? How do you put together the fighters, the media, and the fans when all three don't want to come until the other two come? So these are all kinds of questions that are about building a company, whether that company is Sport Radar, which we invested in, whether that company is DraftKings, which we invested in, whether that company is Team Liquid, which we're the first to do an esports team, or whether that company is Professional Fighters League. You have to build a product that fans want. You have to build a product that media companies will pay for. And you have to build a product that gathers athletes who are top-notch in the world that they want to be part of. So fans, fighters, and media is the standard three that have to exist in all these companies. And that's where I've spent my career.
Let me ask you this, because one of the things you're talking about is, building a company, and there have been, obviously companies built they were sold, things like that. And every business is either meant to be sold somewhere along the line, or, someone's going to end up falling down. As you say, everything rises and it falls. One of the things that you have been absolutely extraordinary in is your ability to raise capital and have people believe in you. And I'm serious, because that's not an easy thing. That is an incredibly difficult thing, because you're getting people to buy in to what you have put out on the table as, hey, this is our plan, because you're opening it up all to them. And this is our plan. This is what our direction is. This is how we're going to get there. And this is when we're going to get there by this time. And they're all believing you and they're buying into you. How do you do it? Because it's not easy.
No, not easy. I would boil it down into three simple steps. And as my 94-year-old dad says, easier said than done, but it is three simple steps. Look, one, you have to present them a plan that is differentiated in the market. If you're doing the same thing that the market already has, you have no chance to win. So that first step is PFL has a sports season format, and PFL is much more global with the international leagues. So we're doing two things that the UFC isn't doing. So initially, people might say they won't work, but they're not going to say it's already been tried or they're already doing it. So step one is we had a unique and differentiated plan. Step two is you have to put together a team that has real credibility of executing something before. They have a track record of delivering. So I have that record of delivering before. Now, the first time I fail, I won't be able to do it again, right? So you're only as good as your last hit record. Nobody wants to be Hootie and the Blowfish, right?
Why? They were awesome.
Yeah, but each record got less good, right?
Yeah. Darius' record's better on his own anyways. Darius is better on his own anyways.
Right. So step two is I can only raise money if I execute what I said a year ago I was going to do, right? And I can only raise next time if I did what I said I was going to do last year. And then the third and simple thing is you have to continue to build a business, not just the elements. So in the past, not disrespecting MMA people, but they might have been good at recruiting fighters. They might have been good at putting on some events, but they never built a business. In the past, every company that UFC ever bought, they bought for less than $100 million, and it had less than $15 million of revenue. PFL this year will do over $100 million of revenue. So we're a business. So are there other people who can maybe identify talent? Sure. Are there other people who can maybe put on events? Sure. That's not building a company. That's building an MMA talent promotion. That's a piece of it. So those are really the three elements you have to do in that unique plan. You have to execute it every year. You got to be as good as your last hit record, or they're not going to believe you anymore. And then number three, you really have to start to build a global business that has real revenue and real metrics that are tangible.
So I wanted to say this. So in terms of what you guys are doing with the PFL, I actually do enjoy it. The Smart Cage gives you the data that basically comes live. I like how you guys have the betting odds that are coming in live. Ian Parker does an absolute amazing job. John, I've known Ian for pushing 15 years, maybe even longer than that now.
Now we're blowing up Ian Parker.
Yeah, I know this guy. He's only about 5'2", so
he's awesome.
But he's a great guy. But in terms of the promotion, or not promotion, but the tournament style, the IFL, Tough, and Bellator, they all used to do a very tournament style format, and teams also. So we've kind of seen this before. They didn't have success. What's the difference between the PFL pushing towards having success and what those companies? I mean, Tough is still going in terms of teams and, you know, kind of fighting one by one. I know it's not what it used to be. I get it. I understand. Okay. But he's using it. Dana White and the UFC is using it to bring in their young talent that they can basically not pay a ton of money.
Look, it's a great question. And once again, having done 50 or 60 companies that we've invested in, 12 of those become worth over $1 billion. You tend to see patterns of winners and losers. So MySpace was the exact same thing as Facebook.
Yeah.
And they're gone, and Facebook's the fifth biggest company in the world. Okay. But same idea. So when everybody sits there and says, well, what about 15 years ago, Bellator, this other company did this? What about 20 years ago when MySpace did that? Yeah. Or in other words, there's a fine line between pleasure and pain. There's a fine line between success and failure. And some of it is the product. Some of it is the timing. Some of it is the execution. Some of it is the A, the B, the C, the D, the E, the F. You can't really identify, oftentimes, was it this or that made a difference. But I believe our commitment to the season, other people had a tournament. A tournament ain't a season. And other people weren't committed to it like we were. So I believe what we've done has never been done in the way that we've done it. There have been iterations of it, granted. There have been things like it, granted, but not really with the commitment and the force and the clarity of the sports season format that we've done.
So you talk.
No, that's true. I'm sorry. Because one of the things about your season format that is, I mean, it's rough. It's not an easy thing to go through. You got to fight at least 4 times in the year
in 8 months
to become that PFL champion. But I'm serious when I say this. You know, and this is a difference between like what Bellator had, you know, in their tournament. When you're the PFL champion, you're only the champion there until the next season starts, and it's gone.
Yeah, but here's the great news.
Here's the great news.
You're the winner forever. Remember, that's true in hockey.
Yeah.
It's true in the NFL. It's gone when preseason camp breaks again with the NFL. It's gone.
No, you're the Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah, you're the Stanley Cup champion for 2019.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
So you're the PFL champion in 2023 forever.
Okay.
You have your 2023 belt forever. This is no different than any other sport. You won it that year. You're the champion that year forever. So to me, it's better. Because you know what? You know how long you have it in the UFC? 1 fight. You may lose the next fight. And what were you? The 301 champ? Until 302? You were nothing. So to me, I love it that nobody can take anything away from you. Just like in sports, no one can take it away from you. Now, is the season perfect? No. Why? Not everybody can do it. 4 fights in 8 months is the toughest test in MMA. No one will dispute that. That doesn't mean that it can determine the best fighter, because not everybody can do it.
What was the logic
two
behind?
Things can be true. The toughest test doesn't necessarily always get the best fighter.
True.
If you're an older fighter, very hard for you to make it. You can only fight twice a year. If you're injury prone, like let's say maybe Justin Gaethje. We acquired Justin Gaethje's contract from the beginning when I bought the World Series of Fighting. He was under contract that very first year I had it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Justin told us, the way I fight my body, I couldn't fight 4 times in 8 months. Your new idea. He told us this in 2017.
I think he's right.
Justin Gaethje, who is top 5 exciting fighter in the UFC, period. And a great fighter. Season format, not great for Justin Gaethje. So age or your type of fighting, you could be a great fighter and it's not perfect for you. Granted. But if you want to know absolutely what's the toughest test in MMA, PFL season
But
format.
don't you look at it and go, look, I could be missing out on some of the most exciting fights in the world by not having guys like Justin Gaethje because your format? Could we not have done it to a 10-month period and given them a month on the front end and a month on the back end, and also too more time for their bodies to recover between fights? Have you thought about, like, was that something that crossed your guys' mind?
Yeah, no, look, we've studied all the data, and that doesn't help you. That doesn't help
How
you.
so? What do you mean?
The recovery period doesn't help you at all. 10 months doesn't help you at all. It's the 4 fights in a short period of time that is legitimately too hard for certain people. And by the way, economically too hard for certain people. They economically can't fit in that envelope. They're too expensive for that envelope in terms of the economics. And also psychologically, they don't want to be part of it. That's not where they want to do. So that's why we have the Bellator Champion Series.
That's going to bring that up.
That's why we have the Bellator Champion Series. A lot of people said, hey, Donn, get rid of Bellator. Close it down. We had half the people tell us that. And we said, no, we're not going to do that. This is a storied brand. How many promotions have ever put on 300 fights? 2. UFC and Bellator. 2. That's how storied this brand is. It can be revitalized. It can be reinvigorated. It can be reimagined. And we believe it's going to be fantastic. But to reimagine that, we want to make it a champion series. So we want to curate it, get rid of 20 events a year. That's just another UFC thing. Back to my earlier comment, it's same old, but not as good. We're going to make it better. 8 events a year, 2 title fights every event in the biggest cities of the world. So a UFC pay-per-view will be as big, but a UFC fight night, worse in terms of talent and excitement than a Bellator Champion Series. So it's positioned above a UFC regular event and below a UFC pay-per-view in terms of fight quality, in terms of production, in terms of overall product. And we said, that's fantastic. People will respond to that. That's where fighters go. Johnny Elbin, Patchy Mix, AJ McKee. These guys in their career are top 5 in the world in their weight classes.
Yeah, arguably they could be
so
number
that's
1,
a
number
product
2. Yeah, arguably they're number 1, number 2. Like Johnny Evelyn,
I agree,
and
but
Patchy Mix both. Arguably,
he's being very.
Yeah. I'm trying to be fair. Look, do I think Johnny Elbin could beat anybody at UFC? 100%. Do I think Patchy Mix can beat Sugar Shane? 100%. But I'm just looking at overall rankings that would have them 5 in the world because there's a UFC bias. We all know there's a UFC bias. But we're talking about guys that literally are top 5 in the world in our company. The season is not the ideal showcase for them. And we're a fighter-first, fan-centric company. That's why we have the Bellator Champion Series product. So Bellator is not here to be second class to PFL. It's here to be unique and different.
I mean, there could be an argument though that the better fighters are in the Bellator series because those are the ones that have a proven record over a long period of time. But whether it's Patrici Pitbull, whether it's Patricky Pitbull, whether it's Gegard Mousasi, who's been ranked in the top 10 for the last 15, 18 years. I mean, a lot of the top talent is over in Bellator, and I'm not trying to show a Bellator bias, but a lot of the argument is that way.
But you know what's great? You can make arguments both ways. That's what we love. Our goal here was not to have A product and B product. Our here was here to build 2 A products, and we had enough fighter talent to do that. Let me give you a metric. The PFL season this year, and Big John may know this from his briefings, the fighter roster, the 72 fighters in the PFL season, 6 weight classes, 12 fighters in each weight class, the average ranking using Fight Matrix, the only independent ranking, is 40. You take all 72 fighters, you go to Fight Matrix, the average ranking is 40. You know what the average ranking for a UFC non-pay-per-view card is in 2024? 46. 46. So leave aside the brand for a minute because UFC's 30 years old.
Yeah.
We're the new kid. So people in their mind have been hearing UFC equals NFL for 25 years. So I understand when fans say, hey, UFC's got all the talent. Because for 25 years, that's what water is washing over their head in the pool for 25 years. I respect that when fans think that. But you know what? That's 100% ain't true. It ain't true. I just gave you the actual fight matrix of 2024 PFL and 2024 UFC. So if you win the PFL season this year, that's how tough it is. Now, if you want to say where's the highest ranked fighters, they're on the Bellator Champion Series this year. If you're ranked in the top 10 in the world, you're fighting on the Champion Series, the ones we just talked about. Yeah. So what I love is we have created for fans 18 events you should not miss. Yeah. 10 season PFL, 8 Bellator Champion Series, because they all have super top quality. The PFL, everybody's in the top 25, except for rising stars that aren't there yet. There ain't no sloughs in that league. And the 2 title fights, everybody's in the top 10 or 12.
Let's talk about the acquisition of Bellator that you went through and stuff, because the way that you, in my opinion, the way that your team went through acquiring Bellator was brilliant, fantastic job of taking over that property. But with that property, you got so many talented fighters that you could, and you did, your team has put a lot of those into the season, PFL season for 2024. Some of them have been put over and stay in Bellator for those championship fights you're talking about. Some of the PFL guys are being put over into the Bellator series now for those fights. A lot of great things happen. There's also bad things that happen. There's also things that are tough. How was it for you to go through that entire thing? Because there's things, no matter how much vetting you do, you're going to find things out later on that you didn't know as you were getting into it, both good and bad.
Yeah, look, it's a great question. The acquisition of Bellator did not close until December. And we had a reimagined product with a full schedule and fighters with 2 fights for the year by February. That's unheard of. I've done dozens of acquisitions where either I've sold or bought. I've never seen that. So I was super proud of the PFL team. We're a small company. We have 62 total employees. And this year we'll do 30 events on 4 continents, having just acquired a company with 205 fighters. And we're getting everybody 2 fights on highly premium produced stuff on 4 continents. So to me, I wasn't surprised because I know the quality and the dedication and how hard our team works, but I expected more hiccups. I've seen more hiccups. I've been part of more hiccups. So occasionally we'll have a fighter grumble. It's one of 205. You expect 5 to 10% issues in any deal. You can't be perfect. You can be 90 to 95%. We've had a handful of people who say, boy, I wish it went this way. I wish it went that way. I'm delighted. I'm very, very proud of how we treated the fighters, how we treated the employees, and most of all, the product that we just completed our second one in Paris, which was awesome. So we didn't sit on this for 6 months. We didn't take a year off. We didn't lay off 100 fighters, all the stuff that always happens in all kind of acquisitions. So I just could not be more proud and couldn't be more smooth. But ultimately, tells us the fans. We want to double that Bellator audience this year on a global basis. To that end, we upgraded almost every piece of distribution. It's on HBO Max in the United States.
Are you happy with that?
Million homes.
Are you happy with that
Love
deal?
It.
Is it working for you?
Love it. Now, we're 2 fights in. Yeah. Fans take a while to find something. Sure. But we're right next to the NBA and the NHL. Right? There's only 3 pieces of premium sports on Max. The NBA, the NHL, and Bellator Champion Series. So it will take a while, 2 events in for fans to find that. But so far, it's far outdrawing what it was on Paramount. So far outdrawing that, but we want more. We're used to what we're doing on the PFL side. And internationally, we've gone from about 80 countries to 140 countries where you can see Bellator. So better distribution. So we're very, very pleased. But our goal is to double the audience in 2024 for Bellator than it had in 2023. We're 2 in. So we got 6 to go. So we got a lot of work to do, but we think we can achieve that.
Has there, because you brought it up and John brought it up as well. Look, you're very good at doing cap raises to bring in revenue for the company. That's you knock it out of the park. But has there been, because John and I have been John's been part of this sport since the conception, okay, like dirt. And then myself, I've been around for a long time, 20 something years in this sport. I've been fighting for the UFC since 2001, all the way up in Bellator, Strikeforce, everywhere. Have you thought about having strictly a promoter for each organization, like a Mike Kogan or a Rich Chow, or even like when Scott Coker was involved? When you were talking about bringing Scott over and the talks and the conversations, having Ray Seifu on the other, whatever it is, on having a solid promoter that does the promoting for it. Because like you said earlier, you do this in terms of cap raise and bringing their money and running the business format, but having someone that is ingrained and has been ingrained into the fight game for 20 something, 30 something, 40. I mean, Scott Coker's been around for 40, 50 years now. Just throwing it out there. Mike Kogan is amazing.
Great question. Yeah, great question. First of all, Mike Kogan now runs all fighter operations for our company. So Mike, if you ask Mike, is doing more for our company.
Well, when you say that, is that just for Bellator or is that also for PFL?
No, he's involved in everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's why
that's a great signing. That to me is amazing because Mike Kogan, I've been around Mike Kogan for over 20 years.
Yeah, Mike's doing everything for us.
Yeah.
Mike's involved in all the stuff we're doing. All fighter development, all fighter signings, all of our expansion internationally. Works very closely with me, Pete, leads a team with Ray himself. So Mike's already the most important asset we got other than the fighters in Bellator.
Oh, that hurt. Ow, no. Just kidding.
I was waiting 23 minutes in.
Get it out. No.
It's the only thing I had planned.
That's beautiful.
So Kogan, fantastic. When you say promoter, the question is for what? What we would like is more mind share among fans, right? So when you say, what's the role of a promoter? There's two roles in my judgment. One, you need MMA chops. You need to know what's going on in the MMA community with fighters, with managers, and signing development. We'll come back to that. Mm-hmm. Number two, you have a marketing and promotion job. Okay. Nobody better at that than Dana White, the marketing and promotion job of this. Okay. So how PFL markets and promotes is different. We don't have a Dana White system here. We have a different marketing and promotion system, how we build our fighters, how we market and develop our product. And we're doing a pretty good job of that. This year, we're 45% of UFC's audience was $0. They spend $200 million a year, right? So, but we do it differently. Then when you get to, okay, the promoter chops, where did Hughes just sign? Last time I checked, it was PFL, not UFC. Where Dakota signed? Last time I checked, it was PFL, not UFC.
With Hughes, he's in Bellator, or is he in? Because he's not in the season.
PFL Inc. But I'm just saying,
it's all the same company. Let's not all forget this.
And I love, and that's always been the one thing that I've always said because people and I said
it's all the same.
They're all PFL fighters.
Yeah. They're all PFL Inc. fighters.
Everybody, thank you. Okay.
Where did Cedric Doumbé just resign? Last time I checked, it's PFL, not UFC. So we haven't lost a signing, period. So why do fighters want to come here? We get to them earlier. We offer them more control. We offer them more flexibility. We're winning. So the classic promoter job of the UFC, of developing talent, forming a relationship with talent, and making talent think you're in their corner, guess who's winning that game? It ain't them. Fighters don't want to be there. Fighters aren't signing there. And if fighters were free to leave there, we'd have more of them.
Okay, then I got to ask you the question, because it's the only fighter that I can honestly think of that has gone from one direction
it's the only one.
to the UFC, and that's Kayla.
It's the only one in 6 years.
And I had heard you in an interview where you were talking about she was still had a fight on her contract. Did you guys just decide to let her go?
It's interesting. Some people at the very, very, very top of their career are LeBron James, and some at the very, very top of their career are Kevin Durant. And they're both otherworldly basketball players. But who they are is very different as people. One wants to lead and change their sport, and wherever they are is the best of the world. The other is a follower who needs validation. And we couldn't do anything about that.
All right.
There's like talking about, let's go back into some more fighters, but there's been a couple little hims and haws from some fighters just in the Bellator PFL. You've recently had Gegard come out and say, hey, I'm going to be sitting on the bench for about a year now. What's going on with him? As well as Douglas Lima coming out and saying, look, no one's called me. No one's contacted me. I got to be honest. These two guys are pillars of this, not just Bellator, but of MMA. Gegard's been around, Dream Days. He's been around for a long time. Top middleweight in the world and 205-pound champion in Strikeforce. Douglas Lima has built this promotion kind of on his back in Bellator, along with Patricio and Patricky. Where are we at with them, and what's going to happen with them?
I would say two things. One, what I'm super proud of is the market and anyone you talk to, fighters, business partners, media, managers, we're direct, fair, and reasonable. 100%. That's my 35 years in business. That's the culture that we've built here. So I will say, without commenting out of respect on individual negotiations or specific situations, we're direct, fair, and reasonable with everybody that we deal with. And will everybody's contract be honored? Of course. Do some people have different ideas of what works and doesn't work? Sure. But we're fair and reasonable with everybody. Will all 205 fighters have everything fall the way they want? No.
Will we see Gegard or Douglas Lima fight this year?
I wouldn't comment at any specific situation.
Okay.
Well played.
That's all right.
Well played. I was trying to pull it out of you. You can't blame me. No. I got to try and dig it in.
But I'm saying I am, and I'm not just blowing smoke with you guys. I'm shocked, not surprised, because remember, shocked is after surprised, that we were able to give 96, 97, 98% of the fighters 2 fights this year, given we closed this deal in December.
Yeah. Are we expecting to see more fights in 2025 for the Bellator broadcast as well?
Nope.
Not just, so
nope.
It'll be the same amount of
exact
fights.
Same thing.
Exactly the same.
We want them to be premium and big. The Bellator product is costing us a lot. We are investing a lot. We make money on the PFL product. The Bellator product, we don't. We're having to build it. Paramount did not build the business.
This is true.
So yes, there were great fighters. No, there was not a good business. We are working to build that business. So it's almost kind of like that Dire Straits song, "Money for Nothing and Chicks for Free."
Ooh, I love that song.
We would all want to see great fights with top-ranked fighters if we didn't have to pay for it. I want to see those too. Okay, but in the world of what makes PFL different from other companies, we want to be a sustainable, multi-decade business for all of them, and all of them means all of them, all the fighters to have an alternative. Well, the way to do that is to have a sustainable opportunity. So we got to build that business up at the same time.
I want to stay on the topic of the fighters because we've had some fighters. Sabahu Masi has come out and been pretty public about the fact that he had some medical bills that weren't paid for his last fight. It was, I believe, over in.
But his fight was in Bellator.
It was in Bellator.
Yeah, we addressed all that.
Okay.
Because all that was, and once again, I don't want to throw people under the bus, but that was Paramount not paying.
Yep.
We've worked to get him paid.
Okay. Is that all be taken care of? Because I saw Yancy Medeiros, one of our other fighters out of Hawaii, had also commented
exact same.
He hadn't got
all
his
happened
medicals
before
paid.
We bought it. So if anything, we're trying to stay low key because that's who we are. Paramount didn't pay. We're working to get somebody who owes him to pay him. So a lot of these fighters and managers don't even understand what they don't understand. Those are our bills. There was old company's bills.
No, that is.
That because of the great work of our general counsel, Jim Branson, who's basically working at night for the fighter's behalf, that we don't know to get him his money.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It's just one of those things. Like, are we getting any leeway with that? That's
But that's one of the things I talked about. Sometimes when you acquire a company, you vet it, but you don't get to know everything, and you don't know that that company has not paid for this guy's medicals.
Correct. And part of this is, and once again, when I was 35 and 40 and 45, I used to throw my phone a lot more. Now I throw my phone. Back then, when I threw my phone, it was $2,000 in this big, right? So you have to get it back. So,
see, I threw my phone back then. It came right back at me because it was on a cord.
That's what I'm saying.
Attached.
So now I throw my phone less, and I throw it onto the bed so it doesn't break. But what I've learned is, you can't contradict everybody on social media. You can't try to correct every lie or mistruth. What you can do is operate 100% of the time with integrity and operate 100% of the time with what is right. And believe me, anything that should be done, we're doing.
That's good to hear. I want to stay. Go ahead, John.
Go.
I wanted to stay on the fighter situation real quick but I wanted to make sure it was more of a positive. Is that, look, you have two of the best guys in the world in Johnny Eblen, 185 pounds, and you've got a 135-pound in Patchy Mix, and he just fought Magomedov, who was a very close fight. You could say he's number 2 in the world at 135 pounds. You've got so many top-level guys, but in the 185-pound, 135-pound division, which you do not have in the PFL. Is there talks? Are we going to see this in 2025?
Will it be
in those weight classes in the tournament?
Look, great question. I approach most of these things, first of all, with what would be good for fighters and fans. Come back to fighter first, fan centric. So, could we put together 135 and 185 that would truly challenge them? If we could, we'd do that. So that's call it Avenue 1. And we're working on that. Number 2 is, if not, could you bring in 2 stars that would really challenge them and then keep them in the Bellator Champion Series, but give them 2 super duper hard fights? So the question is, we have 2 opportunities to take mega stars, mega challenge them in a mega way. How do you do that? Do you take them in the season? That requires more depth.
Yeah.
Do you take them one off? That requires high talent, but less depth. We're trying to do both. We, PFL Inc., are agnostic. Other promotions, they have marketing games. Oh, I want Sugar Shane never to get beat because I'm trying to make him Conor McGregor because I'm trying to get my pay-per-view buys up 300,000. Nah, we don't think about that. Because remember, in the sports season format, we are not in control. The fighters are in control. So we can't really gauge matchups much. So we have to sit there and say, let's put everything forward that could work really well for fans. Let's put the biggest fights forward. So what are we doing? We're in the market at all times saying 185s, 135s. Checkbook wide open. Who can we get? And whoever we can get, how does that best play out for Elbit and Patchy to have a great year?
Well, one of the things that I look at because when Josh is asking about those weight divisions, you just brought in the women's flyweight at 125. You always had the
right.
lightweight, and then you had the featherweight this year.
I don't think they had light heavy women.
I screwed up. I screw up all the time.
Yeah.
But the flyweight that you're putting on right now, it's loaded with great talent. You've got young talent in Dakota Dacheva, who, she's undefeated and showing herself to be a star.
Amazing.
You have older talent in Liz Carmouche, who was I don't want to say former Bellator champion, but the Bellator champion.
Still the Bellator champ.
When went away. You have Talia Santos, who's fantastic, who you got from the UFC, she's a dynamite fighter. You have at least 4 girls, and you have, Juliana Velasquez is outstanding there. You've got a ton of talent in that 125-pound flyweight women's division. Is there any way that can be done in that 185 and 135?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at.
Of course. And look, it took us 2 years to develop that.
Okay.
Right? And PFL Europe, PFL Mideast, PFL Africa and PFL Australia next year. A couple things we'll talk about. But really why we're so successful now, winning on, call it the emerging stars, is we have presence in these markets now. So you don't have to be at one of the feeder leagues. You could be at PFL, and you could become a PFL Europe champ or a PFL Australia champ. You're immediately on a huge TV stage when you're on those. You can immediately get top pay, win $100,000 a year on top of your pay if you do those. And you immediately control your destiny because you get a spot in the global season if you win those. So that's extremely attractive. A guy like Paul Hughes, you know what he said? You don't need to pay me any more than UFC. If I win, I want a spot in the season because I can beat those chumps. Hey, so he sees a path toward really becoming a global champion instead of being in the pile and having to get pulled out of the mess of UFC. So you will see, call it the 185 and maybe even sooner the 135, get developed quicker because of what we're doing around the world, with our international leagues. But that's how 125 developed. Okay. We were able to really accelerate it with Europe plus free agency. Europe plus free agency. So we're extremely aggressive. We're not going to lose a bid on a free agent. We won't. But that is not everything. You also have to be able to recruit and win every top fighter in the world from the feeder leagues.
You said earlier, though, but then when you're starting off in the PFL, not starting off in the PFL, but when you're putting together those brackets, you've got to take a look at what their contracts are because sometimes they're I wouldn't say overpriced. Sometimes their price is a little
sometimes they are overpriced.
That's right.
Sometimes the price is a little hefty. So to have them fight 4 times in a year, the PFL would start to hemorrhage money. If you had 4 of those guys that went there making what they're making, that one weight class would take up quite a bit of the chunk of change. So
it would.
So how do you go about building that though at 185 and 135, knowing that you've got the best fighters right now? I think in the top 3, 4. You've got, like I said, Mix, Magomedov, and then you've got Rafion Stotts. You've got these 3 guys, 4 guys, Danny Sabatello. All these guys are cutting that mix. That man, their price is up there, and
It is true, but look, I think a couple of things. One, we're in investment mode. UFC's in harvest mode. UFC is extremely profitable. Mm-hmm. Good for them. It reminds me, once again, I went to AOL, 1997. In 2000, we started harvesting. We're a mature company. Everybody starts thinking about, I'm taking all my money with stock options, all about my payouts. The world changes mentally. In business, you're either an attacker or you're a defender. There's no room in between. UFC is now a defender.
Business is a fight.
Yeah. UFC is a defender. They want to protect the turf they have. We're an attacker. We want to take turf we don't have. That changes everything in your mind. Why are they still at 17% of revenue for fighter comp? Why is it not 19? What's the difference between 17 and 19 for them? Nothing. A cup of coffee. Except they all want their money. So 17 to 19 is probably some guy there making $2 million instead of $1.5 million.
Yeah, you're speaking like I've been speaking for the last couple of years. Like, why are we not taking baby steps? Look, everyone wants to talk about fighter pay. They want to talk about all these things. I said, look, 17%. Everyone wants to jump to 50% because of the NBA.
Yeah, that's insane.
It doesn't make any sense. Let's be reasonable about it.
I'm a businessman.
Let's go 19.
UFC is the brand.
Yep.
UFC deserves to make money.
Absolutely.
No question. So all that talk is junk.
Yep.
I'm a UFC defender. They've built it. They've earned it. If you're a fighter, go somewhere else. You don't have a PFL option. But if I'm UFC right now, I'm a defender. I got a lot of debt. I've been doing the same thing for 30 years. We're an attacker. Mm-hmm. We're an investor. We're growing. We're innovating. We're disrupting. So for us, what's that mean to your question? We'll do it.
Yeah.
If we can put together a weight class that costs a little too much, but would blow everybody's socks off, we'll do it. By the way, we brought over Francis Ngannou. People said, how are you going to pay for that? We did it. We brought over Jake Paul. We bought Bellator. We just expanded MENA. We're going to Africa. We're going to Australia. We did the Smart Cage. Our answer is yes, 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 and yes.
When talking about MENA, when are you guys looking to do your shows over there, and what areas in what areas over there will you be going to first?
Yeah, there's two things. One, the launch of the PFL Mid-East season was last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool. First ever all Mid-East fighters, 32 Mid-East fighters last Friday. And you had the first woman Saudi fighter, professional ever. Leg kick to the head, Jordanian fighter goes down.
Oh.
The pride of Saudi Arabia has now been activated. The pride of Egypt, the pride of Jordan, the pride of Qatar. They're now in the game. It's their league.
Interesting.
Event 1, last Friday, their league. So just like Europe, if you go to Paris, you know who's the leader of MMA in France? PFL. Because of PFL Europe, Bellator, and PFL being there. In France right now, we own MMA. This is what's going to happen in the Mideast. Next year, African fighters. All prime time in Africa. All 4 events in Africa. Next year, Australia. All Australian, New Zealand fighters. 4 events in Australia, all prime time in Australia. It's their league. So why does everybody here in the United States love MLS? We know MLS is not the Premier League. Mm-hmm. Why do 50,000 people go to the Atlanta Stadium to watch MLS? It's our league. Yep. Okay. So how we view MMA different than UFC is expansive and global. And those all connect to the PFL Global League. What we built 5 years ago is PFL Global. That competes with UFC. We have 30 countries. We're distributed to 170 countries. We have the best fighters in the world. But these regional leagues, they're the best MMA in region, and it's their league. And the winners of those move up to PFL Global. That now activates the world in our favor.
So, Donn, when you're looking at, let's say, the season 2025, okay, and you've got all of these, you've got the PFL Global season, you got PFL Europe, you've got PFL MENA, PFL Australia, you've got Bellator. In reality, how many fights is your staff having to be there for, to organize and to put together?
Are you asking me how many fights you have to zoom in for to get
yes,
commentary?
Yes, that's it.
Is that
all good.
Question here. So next year we're going to have 36 fight events.
Wow, that's a lot. That's awesome, though.
Continents. But the real question is not very far off. In 2026, the Champions League of MMA is fully activated with the launch of PFL Latin America and PFL Asia. So we will have 6 regional leagues. The winners of each fight each other. So what you really have is the Champions League of MMA. So yes, all 6 winners go up to global, but before they do, there's a quick mini tournament like the Champions League of soccer, but it's the PFL Champions League of MMA. So we will have all 6 of those in 2026, and we will have 48 fight events on 6 continents.
Wow, that's impressive. You've also you came out with in February the champions,
the champions.
Yeah, that was done in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Are you going to do that again? I know you said you were before, but now that time's gone by, have you guys changed anything? Is anything different?
No, our hope is to do it the same time in February. If you look at the February schedule, you have the NHL All-Star Game, then you have the Super Bowl, then you have the NBA All-Star Game, then you have Champs v. Champs, the Super Bowl of MMA. Those are your 4 weeks of February on a global sports basis. So we want to own that date every year. We want to take it to Riyadh every year, and the 6 champions of Bellator, or 7 against the 6 or 7 champions of PFL. And we want to do that on an annual basis. And that's super cool because the first year we put it together in 3 weeks. Pretty short for a major global pay-per-view event. And it was a great event, but with several months of planning, even bigger, even better event. And I think it's something that also adds meaning to the Bellator series and to the PFL League each year. Because each of those fighters know that's where they're going in February.
We loved it. Josh and I forever have talked about, we wish that just, be it once a year, be it once every 2 years, the promotions took some of their best fighters and put them in this, format where they got to fight against you. So the fans got to see this is as close, Bellator used to do the whole thing with Ryzen, and now with the PFL and Bellator, when that comes together, that's an awesome event that you get to see some of the very best going against each other.
Yeah, the problem when
keep doing it.
Bellator just used to beat up on Ryzen. You know what I'm saying?
But that's okay.
Yeah, it was good. It was good pride, but what is good? And so to me, I really think the thrill when fighters have all year to think about and then 4 months to plan, this is 2025 is really going to see what can that event be.
Well, when you took for the very first one, it was PFL champs versus Bellator champs, but now you have mixed in some former Bellator champs and some former Bellator fighters into the tournament. What does this say?
Whoever wins PFL is PFL champ.
Right. Yeah.
Remember, they're all. As I love to say, like
it's all under the same banner. But you may potentially end up with Bellator fighters fighting Bellator fighters, even though they're PFL champs now if they win the tournament.
Yeah, but if you think about it, as soon as we bought Bellator, everybody's a PFL fighter.
We've talked about
everybody is.
We say that all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody, whether they're PFL Europe, PFL Mideast, Bellator, everybody's a PFL Inc. fighter. Just like we're all PFL Inc. employees. What product do you fight under is determined by what's best for you as a fighter and what's most exciting for fans. That can change year to year.
Yeah.
We just had Cedric Doumbé at PFL Paris.
Yeah, he's. I
would have. Cedric Doumbé doing.
I don't want to tell you what to do, but don't ever take Cedric Doumbé out of Paris.
Right, but we wanted him to fight in Paris again. Yeah. He wanted to fight in Paris again. We're not back in Paris again. So to me, once again, it's not trying to fix square peg, square hole. It's what's good for the fighter, what's an exciting product for the fans, and we now have the franchises to perfectly match our pool of fighters against that question.
My last question for you, though, for the night is that there's been a lot of buzz around Anthony Pettis fighting Cedric Doumbé.
Yes.
Go ahead. Let's talk. Let's just go ahead. If you want something to break, go right ahead and break it right now.
It's happening.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, so is it signed?
Right,
it's all done?
It's all done.
Do we have a date?
It's not.
Do we have a date?
It's not all done.
You can't just say it's all done. You got to give us a date.
Say it's all done.
Times. What?
I can't give you a date. You didn't. I can't do that.
Will it be in Bellator or will it be in the PFL?
Okay, because we're new friends. It's my first time on your podcast. I'll do something. I don't want to bum you out.
You're not bumming me out.
He's fighting on our next pay-per-view super fight.
Okay. And
we haven't announced the date of that. He will fight on the Francis Ngannou super fight card.
Is that going to be sometime in September, October, after the summer? Okay.
Yeah.
Normally,
September, October.
Normally the big time pay-per-views are around, Cinco de Mayo and, Mexican Independence Day is kind of when everyone holds it.
Yeah, it's going to be September, October. Okay. Francis, as we said, is going to fight Le Problemo, who's now number 5 in the world. Wow. As we've said for 6 months, but now my good friend Chris Cyborg agrees. She's going to fight.
You're good.
Is she going to fight Larissa?
She's going to fight Larissa. What a fight. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have Doumbé against Pettis. And we haven't even started to fill out the card. And I already want to watch.
I just want to tell you that as you're looking at all these things and things come together, I thought that, during your series, the champ versus champ, when Heenan won the way he did, boy, did it set up your Francis Ngannou versus Heenan Problema fight. I mean, just fantastic. And everyone now is looking forward to that fight.
It's incredible. And it's, if you said, what's the one fight that really mattered? Like, do I care if it goes this way or that way? That's the fight that mattered.
Yeah.
I needed either Bader or Le Problemo to win decisively. Now, either one, but I needed somebody in the first round to take command and say, you know what, Francis Ngannou, I can put up a fight. I would have never imagined it would be like that.
Yeah.
Not in my wildest, that's perfect. setup would I imagine that. And to me, I did not know Ryan Bader very well. I enjoyed talking to him twice.
He's a great guy.
Loved him. He is the epitome of a grizzled, cage smart fighter. For him to basically look shocked and out of it in 10 seconds is wild. And that's the testament of, I think, what La Problema is and what he could be.
Yeah.
That's a testament to 265 pounds hitting you with a right hand that doesn't get stopped in any fashion.
But so fast.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's what's impressive about Heenan is he is very athletic.
For 6'8", he's extremely athletic.
When you go back and you look, because I believe his first fight in the PFL was against Fabricio Verdum.
In that kind of controversial situation.
Exactly. But you saw in that, you go, oh, this dude can hit, man. This dude's got some speed. He's got fast hands. And then he's had he had the setback with I want to say it was Goltsov beating him in the one. But other than that, I mean, he's looked and he's getting better. That's the part and that's what you're looking for. You're always looking for that kind of guy for you to be able to look and say, hey, look, he's getting better. Take a look at what he's doing here. His takedown defense is getting better. His ability to stop things and his hand speed for the size of it. The dude can do a backflip in the ring.
Off one foot.
Yeah, exactly.
His only enemy was himself, I believe, in terms of training and discipline. And it wasn't about anything other than what does it mean to go to that next level? What does it mean to go to that next level? But talking to people around him, which I did 2 years ago, he came with us to the New York Stock Exchange to help us ring the bell. We had an honorary day on the NYSE. It was really great. We brought him with us, and I talked to him. And to be one of the greatest in the world, he had all the tools. It was, is he going to do what it necessary mentally to put it together? And I think what we saw is he's on his way.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, my last question for you is this.
Anything, guys?
Look, I don't want to take all your time. We appreciate you being on the show and everything that you're doing for us as far as just, giving this information. Come 2025, 2026, 2027, I'm going 3 years here.
Yeah.
Where is it that Donn Davis sees the PFL as a company and everything that they have put in place with all of these PFL Europe, PFL Australia, Latin America, everything going on?
Yeah, great question. And I'll answer it by telling you my initial vision 6 years ago was that we would be the number 2 premium company in MMA. And having studied the market, there was clear room for premium number 2. And nobody believed that. And I don't mean, minor league number 2. I mean a premium, legitimate, valuable number 2. Well, we achieved that this year. It took us 6 years, but we achieved that. The athlete quality, the distribution, the audience, and the revenue, there's no number 3 even close to us. And in many of those, we're equal to UFC, and some were half of UFC. Revenue, we're still much less. First goal achieved. But that was the goal.
Yeah.
It was never to take share, never to beat them. It was premium, valuable, number 2. The next 6 years, co-leader. Once again, the goal is not beat them, take share, us versus them. We don't have to do any of that. They'll continue to do well. They'll continue to grow. They'll continue to add value. But we, PFL Inc., can be the co-leader. And by that, I mean equal audience that watch us on linear and streaming. By that, I mean equal fighter talent, top to bottom, whether it's pay-per-view or emerging. By that, I mean equal conversations on digital and social. Our revenue and our business won't be as big because they still got a 2-decade head start. But I mean co-leader in every other respect. And that's our goal that we set out, call it Chapter 2. And that's what I think we can do.
That's outstanding. I hate to say it, I do have one more question, though. You have a business partner in Jake Paul. You brought him up. He's got a fight coming up in July against this guy named Mike Tyson. I don't know who he is. But what do you think?
My sole goal, because I love them both and they're both partners, is neither one loses.
Okay, there you go.
I want to see an awesome, awesome fight that's a draw.
There you go. I can understand why. Yeah, that's one of those ones I'm like, man, that's you look at the whole thing. It's an amazing thing that Mike at the age of 58 is going to be stepping in the ring, and you look and you go, yeah, he still has a chance against a young guy.
Yeah,
because Jake's good.
Yeah, well, I spent 3 days with Mike in Saudi for the Champs v. Champs, and my wife was a great books major, Harvard Law School. She's smarter than me. She's smart with the family. Mike had 3 lunches with me and my wife, and they talked Nietzsche, Voltaire, Chaucer. People would be surprised by the curiosity, wisdom, and soul of Mike Tyson.
Oh, yeah.
So most people are amazed that he's fighting at 58. I haven't come across somebody who has the depth and wisdom and soul in business or in life as Mike Tyson. He's a special man, and I only wish him the best.
Same here. Well, Donn, I want to tell you, thank you so much for your time. I know it's valuable. I know it's precious, and you gave it to us. Thank you very much. We've appreciated having you on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO and the man that is moving PFL forward, Mr. Donn Davis.
Appreciate it. I'm coming here anytime. You let me know.
Thanks, Donn.
We'll have you back. Thanks,